Jaime from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today 2 cards, 1 design, 2 separate sentiments. One might be a little snarky, and one might be a little on the sweet side. So I am starting by stamping out Ink Road stamps February of 2023, stamp of the month. So if you are new to Ink Road or you don't know Ink Road, she does have, I think there's 3 subscriptions you can do now, but I just do the ink subscription. And so it is the little Ink Road girl doing, you know, whatever she does every month. And then there's usually a couple of sassy sayings that go with it. For this one, I had decided to do some watercoloring, so I'm priming my Bristol Smooth cardstock with my Tailored Expression powder tool because I want to do some embossing powder over the top of this one. I am using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm just going to cover that with some clear embossing powder and heat set it. This allows me to do my watercoloring a lot faster, and I don't have to wait for anything to dry, and I don't have to worry about colors running together, especially with that red I'm using. So for my palette on this one, the colors in there are actually Distress reinkers. I love painting with Distress reinkers or Distress in general, and so I wanted some Pearlescents or some mica on these, and so I just brought in my Brutus Monroe Aqua Pigments in Frost. I'm pretty sure I just did the red frost on this one, but don't quote me on that one. So for my airplane, I took a very watered down black soot and made it a light gray because I wanted it to be a metal airplane. And then just adding in some layers to kind of give me some shape and some some depth and dimension, I guess. And then going in with a lot heavier hand on that black soot. Now keep in mind, Distress reinkers are already liquid, but if you don't add enough fluid to them, they will stay liquid because the resin doesn't really dry. And so it's important to make sure that you do add water to your reinker. If this is something you have trouble with, I would suggest using the little mini ink cubes because then you have to use water to get them to move a little bit more. Ask me how I know. Yeah. Let's just say it doesn't dry, ever. Okay, it might, but it's probably days, and I don't ever have time for days. But using that embossing powder on it allows me to color the whole image right away, not having to wait for that red to dry or different things to dry, so I'm not re-wetting or making the colors run together. You know, it saves a little bit of time. So for my skin tone on that one, I actually used some Vintage Photo, just watered down heavily to get me a skin tone shade that I liked. And if it's ever too dark, you can always go in with a paper towel or a clean flour sack cloth and kind of suck up the moisture, and it will lift some of that color up and leave, you know, a lighter impression behind. So my ink tones there were Lumberjack, Plaid, Salvaged, Patina, Black Soot, Vintage Photo, and then I did have some ribbon, prize ribbon in there as well. And then the purple I think was maybe Villainous Potion. I'm not exactly sure. But I'm using the colors that are left on my palette that were sky tone. So that blue and the Salvaged Patina. And for the first one, I did, you know, just with the paintbrush over the top. For my second one, I wanted to kind of I did do a little bit of splattering on my first background, but then I did come in with some Distress mixed media heavy stock here and did some ink smooshing on the back of it with that Distress Oxide ink. I did add in some of the Salvaged Patina in Distress ink on that second background as well. So you get to see the different, I guess, the different styles that you can come or achieve with either ink smooshing or with just using your brush across the paper. I did let these dry overnight, and then I did run them through my laminator. It's just a glorified laminator to help flatten them back out. And then I treated it again with that anti-static powder tool from Tailored Expressions, and then I'm just using some clear embossing powder with the cloud stamp from the Inkroad stamp set, and then using a pearl. It's like a glittery pearlescent color. It allows the color to shine through. It kind of just gives it that wispy cloud look, and it adds beautiful shimmer and shine to the background there. Let me just say, it looks way prettier in person than it does on camera. So I did decide to bring in that Swish-n-Pop dynamic or dye from LawnCuts for this one. I haven't used it a whole lot on flat cards. I used it more in my platform pop-up, but I decided I needed to get a little bit more practice on some, the actual intended use for it. And so that's what I'm doing here. I was like, well, this would be fun to make the airplane fly across the sky. So it gives me the look I am going for. I did cut that arm with a piece of heavyweight acetate, and then I do double up on my lever there, so it's got some extra sturdiness to it. And then I did cut out my cloud from some glimmery, shimmery cardstock from, I think it's from envelopes.com. It's like their 105-pound weight, but it's a fairly heavy weight. And then I did do some ink. I used the Distress Oxide inks and then some clear embossing powder to heat set on that so it would dry, because it does have a film or a coating on it that kind of doesn't let that dry very good. And this way it just heat set it, and I didn't have to worry about smudging it. And so for this one, I'm not too worried about my airplane going off the front of my card. I just want to make sure that the airplane is totally on the card when I get to the full in position here. Why? Because I need it to fit in the envelope. Above and beyond that, I wasn't worried about it fitting on the rest of the card front. Does it in the end? It might, I don't even know. I did these ones a couple of, probably at the beginning of April, end of February. End of March, sorry. I don't even know what month it is anymore. Because this one was for my sister-in-law's birthday. And so I am using some other Inkroad stamp sentiments. I think the I know you're fine, totally fine, absolutely fine, but just in case you're a little not fine, I'm here. Was from, I want to say it's from the Hope set from Inkroad Stamps. I'm not positive. If anyone wants to know, I can definitely look it up. It's in my stash. So it's just one that, I kind of liked it, and so it kind of went with probably how this year has been going. And so I had decided on something sweeter for my sister-in-law's card, and then the other one I went full snark, because that's how I roll. So I'm just making sure that I'm not going to hinder my movement here on my arm. So I'm just going to add in some double-sided mini strips here, and then make sure I'm allowing movement for my arm there and not letting anything hinder it. So my two on the top are going to help to, stop your movement or your arm from moving too far one way or the other. And then the other thing I was worried about is making sure that I don't hit on the other end here. And then I also want to make sure that I have enough double-sided adhesive on top of that cloud so it's not going to hit or hinder movement on the other end. So I will add all of these on here. My favorite chore to do on camera is to remove the adhesive on double-sided adhesive. It's not, but necessary evil sometimes. So once I am happy here, I kind of pull up on that one strip there just to try to give it, I'm going to add just a little piece of foam tape. I want to make sure that it's not going to touch my plane at all and hinder that movement, but it's going to help hold that top piece. Now for this one, I do kind of, because I didn't actually have it glued on there with permanent adhesive yet. So I'm going to take some of that double-sided score tape and lift this up here and just kind of lay that on there so it holds my airplane in place. I will do a little tiny bit of glue there as well, and then I'm going to snip off that extra right before I glue it all down. And so this, and then I'm just going to go over it with some anti-static powder just to cover up like where there might have been a little bit of removable adhesive on the back of that airplane from me trying to move it around to get the right angle on it. And it doesn't go behind the cloud so much, it kind of stays on top. So after I did the first initial pass through, I realized it was probably just going to go on top, and I was fine with it. It's, you know, it is what it is. So just making sure that that movement is good there, trying to pull it up a little bit to get it to tuck behind the cloud instead of in front, and yeah, it just wasn't going to go. I'm going to bring in one of my little punches here just to kind of punch out a little bit of that back panel piece here so you can get a better grip on that pull tab piece. If I was on top of it, I could have used the die that comes with it for the front and the back piece, but you know, I don't ever plan that far ahead in life. Let's be real. I am using some diamond dots for my embellishments. They're number 5002 if you are interested. They kind of, these ones are like a really light bluish green color with some shimmer and shine to them. And then for the front of my top panel here, I'm also doing a little notch on the side of it so we can get a little bit more of that, you know, I got fat fingers, and so sometimes it's hard to grab onto those little pull tab pieces, and that helps if you put a little bit of a hole punch on the front one. I am going to add some double-sided adhesive. I'm not worried about leaving an extra layer in there for my brad to move. It should move just fine. I'm just not going to put adhesive there. And then I will line that up in one of the corners and then push that down. And then I will trim off the little bit of cloud that is hanging over the side. I saved you the pain of me trying to open up the new Diamond Dots container because it takes me forever. Anyways, I selectively added glue and embellishments as I didn't want the plane to actually hit any of the embellishments, as it would, you know, stop it from flying across the sky. And let's be honest, when a plane stops flying across the sky, it's not good for the occupants. So I add them onto the clouds as well. And then I did use that other background and the other image that I created for a second card, and that one has a little bit snarkier of a sentiment. It's from Mean Girls, the coordinating stamp set from Ink Road that has, you know, the saints from Mean Girls on it. So there, that one is going across the sky. The second one does the same thing, and here is that sneak peek there, flying by to say, get in your adventure. Anyways, I hope you have an amazing day. Bye!